Worryingly so, sir. Brigadier Vijay Sagar, a few of our soldiers are still missing.
हमारी आर्मी एक प्रोफेशनल आर्मी है।
पर इंडिया के साथ जो लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल है वो जानबूझ कर नहीं समझाना चाहता।
आप सरकार को जिस तरह से घेरना चाहते हैं घेरिए, मगर इसके खत्म होने के बाद
टेररिज्म, क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म, ये सब नहीं चलने वाले।
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मुद्दों पर आपकी पकड़ भी हो कुछ ऐसी जो करे आपको और लोगों से अलग, तो ब्रिगेडियर डॉक्टर विजय सागर धीमान को यूट्यूब, फेसबुक, ट्विटर पर फॉलो करना ना भूलें।
Good evening, viewers. We welcome you to the portals of Indian Institute of J&K Studies and Analysis, IJSA. And with the kind consideration of VR1 channel on the YouTube, we are here with you another live topic of today. That is Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. Well, viewers, you are aware, last year on 5th of August, Modi government removed this article from the Indian Constitution and ensured that the whole of Jammu and Kashmir state is fully integrated in India as two union territories, that is Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh. This also includes the areas which are in POJK, that is Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and Gilgit-Baltistan. Well, removal of this Article 370 had far-reaching ramifications world over, and even in the domestic politics as well. But we are aware that the Chinese standoff with the Indian Army on the line of actual control today is one of the fallouts of this. Besides, we've also seen certain developments happening in Gilgit-Baltistan in terms of Imran government declaring that particular province as a fifth provisional province of Pakistan. And we've also seen on 15th of November, the elections have been held. To discuss about these implications of these elections and the condition in Pakistan domestic politics, we have an expert with us who's a very, very prominent human rights activist, and he belongs to the area of Mirpur in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Sir, as you know, the elections have been held, and a lot of reports are coming that there were fractured mandate. Some people are saying Imran Khan's PTI has already won. Some people are saying that locals are revolted. Now you belong to that place. You are in touch with those people. Please comment on this, sir.
Well, you see, this is not the first time that elections are held in Gilgit-Baltistan. This drama bazi started back in 2009. So in 2009, Pakistani government allowed the people of Gilgit-Baltistan to cast a vote in a so-called legislative assembly that was supposed to make legislations for Gilgit-Baltistan, but they have not been allowed to do so. They come directly under the leadership of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So then the second election were held in 2015, and then the elections are held in 2020. Now, elections have been elections in Gilgit-Baltistan have a certain pattern. Normally, the sitting government in Pakistan, they win the election. And I give you an example that in 2015, it was Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Sharif group, and they were in government, and they won the elections in PM in Gilgit-Baltistan, and the total seats out of 23 seats they got was 16 seats. So they were able to form a government. Similarly, in 2009, before the 2015 election, 2009, Pakistan People's Party was the sitting government in Pakistan. And in Gilgit-Baltistan election, the Pakistan People's Party won 14 seats. However, this time the sitting government is Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan, and they have allegedly won 7 seats, which is quite low. And although they have rigged the election, and the rigging started not just on the polling day, it started by when they formed an interim government, when the sitting government in Gilgit-Baltistan had to leave the office so that elections can be, held. So there was an interim period. So for that period, they formed an interim government, and they had their own people as chief election commissioner, as the Nigran Wazir Ala, which is like provisional.
So you very
provincial
rightly
minister.
said that they were rigged. Like what I have been hearing is they say the elections are held, but candidates are not elected. They are selected from Islamabad. It is already pre-decided
Well,
who's going to be there. And once the government is
yeah,
formed, they
exactly.
have no independent rights. They cannot make any legislations. They have to toe the line
Exactly.
whatever orders come from Islamabad.
Exactly. Even the Prime Minister of Pakistan himself is selected for that matter. So coming back to rigging, now the second rigging was done through postal ballots. Thousands of postal ballots, were stamped, and 1,700 postal ballots were even accidentally discovered in the district of a store by people. So that is another way that they have tried to rig the election. Then their federal ministers have been visiting Gilgit-Baltistan and offering bribes to the Janta by saying that if you give us 3,000 vote lead in Gilgit-Baltistan elections over our opponents, then we will invest $400 billion, 400 billion rupees in Gilgit-Baltistan, and that kind of thing. Now Bilawal Bhutto is very angry, and Bilawal Bhutto is claiming that 3 of their seats, they have won 4 seats, so he claims that 3 of his seats were stolen. The mandate was stolen, and the ballot boxes were changed. When the election polling was ended. So yesterday there was a big protest. The PMLN, which is Pakistan Muslim League Noon, Nawaz Group, they have rejected this election result. And before the elections, Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz, had issued tickets to 6 of its candidates, including the Speaker of the Assembly of Gilgit-Baltistan. Suddenly they disappeared, and the 6 of them then switched sides, joined the PTI. Now, how is it possible that nominated candidates are forced to switch sides? So there is massive rigging in Gilgit-Baltistan election, and protests are being held, and I think that this election is the most controversial election by far. So in Gilgit-Baltistan, there are no civil rights, there are no human rights, and now we know that there is not even the right to choose your own government.
So as you said, there are no rights. What I was given to understand, even if that elected body which is there, they don't make any rules of their own. They cannot take independent decisions. And they all subverted from the Islamabad. What is said from there, they have to just put a rubber stamp and say yes to that. And why has it not been contested so far, sir?
Well, you see, people have been raising their voice against these atrocities, against lack of democracy, lack of human rights, and not only that, but also people have been raising their voice against the plunder of natural resources, the diversion of rivers, the illegal construction of dams. But what is the result? The result is they are all languishing in prison. My friend Baba Jan is Iftikhar Karbalai. They were charged 10 years ago. They were charged with murder, like murders and stuff like that. And they are in prison for sentence. They got sentences for 40 years each. Baba Jan got for 70 years. Iftikhar Karbalai got 90 years of imprisonment, and they are 10 years have gone and they are still in prison. Yet people are protesting. Gilgit-Baltistan is a very, very volatile area politically because of the CPAC, Chinese intrusion into our land, and people are very much upset. But you see, for every 25 Gilgit-Baltistan people, for every 25 people, there is one Pakistani soldier deployed. So can you believe how heavy presence the military has there? 120 platoons have been deployed only in the Dhamir district where Dhamir Bhasha Dam is constructed. So it's a heavily militarized zone. They talk about Kashmir being militarized zone, but they don't look at their own, home ground and see that how much militarized is that. Not only the Pakistani army, but Chinese army personnel disguised as technical staff. They call them technical staff, engineers and stuff like that for hydropower projects and roads and bridges, construction of those projects. But most of them are Chinese PLA people.
As you mentioned that CPEC is there and Chinese, it is heavily protected by the Pakistani army. Can you tell us something about the rise of Shia militancy against Chinese as well as Pakistani army, and what kind of a dimension are they making?
Well, Gilgit-Baltistan is predominantly Shia majority area, and what happened is over the years, Pakistan has very cunningly and very uncannily has been bringing in people from Punjab and from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So on one side, from one angle, they are changing the ethnic demography of Gilgit-Baltistan, but most dangerously, they are trying to alter the Shia dominant demography of Gilgit-Baltistan, because these people who are being brought in from Punjab and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are of Wahhabi Sunni, sect of Islam, and they have been clashes. Alok Bansal has written a book on Gilgit-Baltistan, and he has mentioned almost every single communal incident that took place in Gilgit-Baltistan in detail. So whenever the people of Gilgit-Baltistan rise and protest for their human rights or against, cutting the subsidies in flour or wheat and stuff like that, most of the time those protests or those movements have been drowned in the blood of communalism. So the demography is being changed a lot of places. And also the army, the role of military as a business enterprise has to be taken into account. The Pakistan military is not Indian military. Indian military is a military born out of the struggle for independence. Indian army is a totally different, of a totally different nature, of a totally different, ideology. It's a people's army. Indian army is a people's army. Indian generals, brigadiers, military officers, they live among the masses. They don't build their own separate gated, it's not a gated community like in Pakistan. Pakistani army is an occupying army. It's an army that has become a parasite it's a strange parasite, I've never seen a parasite of this nature that eats its own body, its own living body. I mean, if Pakistani state is a living body, then army is eating that body. They are corrupt to the core. They don't allow any mega project to go into the private sector. They control the economy from making toothpaste and soaps to cereals to banks, property, you name it. There is not a single sector in Pakistan economy that is not under the direct control of Pakistan army. Now we come to Gilgit-Baltistan. Now what is happening is they are buying our green pastures. Our people mostly have green pastures, and they take their cattle there, they take their, herds there, and they graze there. Now those green pastures are very important for ecology. They are buying those lands in the name of building golf courses, and then reselling them to themselves. And it is amazing how Pakistan army has taken control of a whole region and exploiting and taking kickbacks. The Frontier Works Organization, which is the arm of Pakistan army, which is dealing with construction and stuff in the CPAC, I mean, there is massive corruption has been noted during.
As you said that the Pakistani army is controlling the Gilgit-Baltistan in a very, very close manner. I guess Pakistani army is very prominent in the rest of the country as well as Pakistan. So, can you tell us this about the latest dossier being submitted by the Pakistani establishment, which probably is at the behest of the Pakistani army regarding India's involvement in terrorist activities within Pakistan? I mean, it's a bizarre kind of a charge, but can you tell us some details about it? What have they tried to say about it, sir? That
Well,
India
it's
is
like-
ruling terrorism within Pakistan. Sir.
Well, Brigadier Saab is like the pot calling the kettle black. Ulta chor ko to aal ko dante. You know, it is hilarious. Honest to God, when I listened to his press conference, and I felt like it's a schoolboy sitting there and complaining about the monitor. इसने मुझे मारा, इसने मुझे कुर्सी पे खड़ा किया, हैं? ये हमारे lunch चोरी कर लेता है. That type of language he was using. Now let me go through Shah Mahmood Qureshi press conference a little bit. Now Shah Mahmood Qureshi held a press conference on the 14th of November, right? And in that press conference, he was flanked. There was a ISPR Director General was sitting next to him, you know. So, under the watchful eye of the military, he was holding that press conference, right? And what did he say? He said the purpose of the press conference is to expose Indian state-sponsored terrorism. Can you believe that? Indian state-sponsored. But the allegations that Shah raised were those that the rest of the world has been employing to describe Pakistan in sponsoring global terrorism. Now, India has been a victim of Pakistani state-sponsored terrorism since the 22nd of October 1947. And it has never stopped. It has never stopped. Never stopped. Now, since 1979, Pakistan set up jihadi terrorist training camps alongside the border with Afghanistan and started this so-called Islamic Jihad against a peaceful and a democratic Afghanistan from the 1979.
That's right.
In the 80s, they diverted the 80s and 90s, they started to divert their trained jihadis towards Indian Union territory of Kashmir. And we know Mujahideen and Hizbul Mujahideen and Lashkar-e-Taiba and all these organizations, you know, we can't forget what they've done when they attacked the Indian Parliament. 60 people died in that. We cannot forget the 2008 Mumbai attacks. You know, Pulwama, I mean the federal minister of Pakistan from the floor of the Parliament, Fawad Chaudhry, Minister of Science and Technology, from the floor of the Parliament, he is confessing कि पुलवामा हमने किया.
True.
And the foreign minister has the cheek to say to the world that Pakistan is so I can go through each and every of Shah's accusation, but what I would say is that you know, on the 10th of November, Modi ji was addressing the SCO summit, 20th summit of SCO. And in that summit, Putin was there. Head of states of many countries were there. And he said that in order for economic prosperity, what is needed is to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of your neighbors. Well, this is what Pakistan has never done. This is exactly what India has been doing. No matter Congress की गवर्नमेंट थी या किसकी गवर्नमेंट थी, इंडिया का एक स्टांस रहा है कि नॉन एग्रेशन. Even in Indira Gandhi's days, although I don't support Indira Gandhi or Congress at all, because we are a victim of their negligence, but उस वक्त भी तो non-aligned movement बनी. India could have taken sides. Lekin as a country, as a state, as a nation, India does not infringe on other people's human rights, territorial rights, or sovereign rights. So yeah, Shah Mahmood Qureshi is just nonsense. Nobody is going to pay any heed. Afghanistan has already rejected its accusations that Afghanistan is involved in terror activities against Pakistan.
Sir, how
So this,
seriously
I wouldn't
you
even pay any
take
attention.
Shah Mohammad Qureshi and Sheikh Rashid's statements? How seriously you take Sheikh Rashid and Shah Mohammad Qureshi's statements in Pakistan?
I like Sheikh Rashid because you need entertainment in politics. You see. So whenever Sheikh Rashid comes on the television, I ask everyone, oh, terror, Sheikh Sahab aaye, because I feel that is my comedy time, when I enjoy something. So he's a good comedian. Yeah.
So it's good to have some entertainment from Pakistan, sir. Now, please tell us about your residential region of Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. What is the condition of the people over there right now, sir? And what are those people's aspirations are, and how are they trying to represent them to the Pakistani government or to the international community, or what are their aspirations towards India, sir?
You see, I come from the so-called Azad Jammu and Kashmir. I come from Mirpur. And our story is very painful, and I would just touch bits of it for the sake of your audience. Firstly, our village was drowned because they made Mangala Dam, and when they made Mangala Dam, thousands years old, our village with the mandirs and gurdwara and mosque and everything went under the water. So we lost our ancestral home, and many people also had the same fate. Most of the Mirpur people are living in the UK, and one of the reasons is that POJK does not have any industry. It doesn't have any, manufacturing sector or anything. There used to be a Vespa scooter factory, but that factory is long gone, finished. So when our women get pregnant in Azad Kashmir, there's a saying, they say that this mother is carrying an immigrant in her womb, because they know that as soon as this child is born and reaches the age of 15 or 16, they will make a fake ID card that he's 18 and send him to the Middle East in very low paid jobs. So you will find that very few young people, until recently there were very few young people in Azad Kashmir. You could either find very, very old people, or you could find only women, young women, middle-aged women, bearing children, whose husbands or brothers or fathers are abroad in Europe or mostly in the Middle East. Municipal corporation system is very, very poor, and Mirpur every now and then becomes like a dustbin, because all the filth of the city, there's no one to collect it. Then there's electricity crisis. I mean, when they made the Mangala Dam, when they constructed the Mangala Dam, Pakistan promised that Azad Kashmir will get free electricity. So the total requirement for POJK is 300 megawatt, and Mangala Dam produces more than 1400 megawatt. But today, we pay more for the electricity than people in Pakistan. For the electricity that is being produced.
There are multiple corruption scams in Pakistan as far as the power sector is concerned, and even the Chinese are concerned. But how do you sort of deal with this? Because I'm told that maximum people who are the evacuees from Mangala Dam when it submerged a lot of areas have all traveled abroad, sir. And once they are abroad, like you are there in exile in UK, they have certain amount of organizations which represent to the international organization like United Nations Human Rights Council. So how do you present your case over there, and what have you been telling them over there, sir?
For 73 years, we have been begging the United Nations to force Pakistan to agree upon implementing the UN resolution, the first UN resolution, at least. There are more than 25 resolutions now. But at least start from the first one. And the first one demands that Pakistan withdraw all its troops and aliens from our land. But it hasn't happened. So during my, if you can call it a political career, although I don't know, but during my this political life, I've been visiting UNHRC several times. And the last time when I went there, I said from the floor of UNHRC, said to the president of the presidium that UN resolutions have become obsolete for us. They have not been able to solve a single problem for 73 years. Hence, we demand that new UN resolutions should be, drafted. And those UN resolutions, any new UN resolution should be drafted on the lines that Pakistan has committed a war of aggression, Pakistan has committed crimes against humanity and crime against peace in our region. And I have got proofs for that. I mean, everyone has got Google Barawa.
Pakistan has committed crimes against humanity. Their army has done war crimes against the civilian populations. So these kind of things you have been projecting to the international bodies, saying that new UN resolutions should be brought in, and maybe certain tribunals should be made to try out the Pakistani defaulters. Now, sir, we are running out of the time. Quickly, can you tell us, you as a person from POJK in exile, elsewhere like in UK and many others, what are the expectations that you all have from Indian government? What should Indian government do to ameliorate your position, or should Indian government carry out a military strike to integrate your area back into the country? What is your vision on this?
First of all, I would say that Indian government has already started making renewed claims over the territory that was Indian always, which is a very good sign. But also what is required is a POJK reunification campaign on a national level in India. Every single state of India should have a reunification of India movement. They should hold seminars in every single state and explain why POJK and Gilgit-Baltistan are part of India. They should patiently, consistently, and persistently explain to the masses what was Operation Gulmarg, what was Operation Tatakhel, what was Operation Gibraltar, what was Operation Topak, what was the Kargil War. Unless Indian government develops a consensus among its own people, Indian government should start seriously considering, if they have not started yet, to bring in people from the diaspora who belong to the POJK on special presidential decree or whatever, nominate them as members of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and like Manoj Sinha is our lieutenant governor. He should have a person with him, like advisor to Manoj Sinha on POJK, advisor to Manoj Sinha on Gilgit-Baltistan. If you really consider us your people, then what is keeping India from nominating people and bringing them over to Srinagar, bringing them over to Ladakh, make one person sit in Ladakh who is from Gilgit-Baltistan, originally from Gilgit-Baltistan, not from Ladakh. Similarly, person who belongs to POJK. I'm not marketing myself. I'm saying anyone. There are so many. pick one up, but that should be done. मनोज सिन्हा साहब के साथ एक आजाद कश्मीर POJK का एक अफेयर्स का एडवाइजर होना चाहिए, एक लद्दाख के साथ लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर के साथ गिलगित बल्तिस्तान का एक स्पेशल एडवाइजर होना चाहिए, जो क्योंकि जब तक आप जो पॉलिसीज बनाते हैं आजाद जम्मू कश्मीर यूनियन टेरिटरी, उसके अंदर हर पॉलिसी के अंदर जब तक आप ये नहीं रखते कि जी हमारा आजाद कश्मीर जब हमारे साथ होगा तो उसके लिए 5,000 करोड़ का बजट है जिससे हम आजाद कश्मीर की सड़कें, आप तो बात ही नहीं करते। आप तो बात हर वक्त करते यूनियन टेरिटरी में ये कर दिया, यूनियन टेरिटरी में ब्रिज बना दिया, तो भाई हमारे भी तो बात करो ना कि हमारे लोग देखें आपकी तरफ।
जो
वो कहता है 400 बिलियन इन्वेस्ट करेंगे गिलगित बल्तिस्तान में, तो आप भी अनाउंस करो कि हम 4,000 करेंगे।
तो जो जम्मू कश्मीर की लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली है, इट हैज सर्टेन सीट्स वेकेंट जो रखी हुई हैं, जब ये
बुलाओ में
हो जाएगा तो दैट इन जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, बट शायद उन्होंने ऑक्यूपाई नहीं करा अभी तक, मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ द यूएन रेजोल्यूशंस और व्हाटएवर। तो आई थिंक ये इज अ गुड सजेशन। एंड जो दूसरी सजेशन आपने दी है, नेशन वाइड मूवमेंट होनी चाहिए, देयर शुड बी सेमिनार्स, देयर शुड बी मीटिंग्स, पीपल शुड नो व्हाट ऑफ गुलमर्ग इज, ऑफ दत्ता खेल इज, ऑल सच थिंग्स अगर सबको पता चल जाएंगी तो आई एम श्योर वी विल बी इन अ मच बेटर पोजीशन टू
करिकुलम का हिस्सा बनाएं, करिकुलम का हिस्सा बनाएं, स्कूलों में पढ़ाएं, स्कूलों में पढ़ाएं। क्यों नहीं पढ़ाते हिस्ट्री? सारी झूठी हिस्ट्री पढ़ाते हैं इंडिया में, करिकुलम में सारा फेक हिस्ट्री पढ़ाते हैं, उल्टी हिस्ट्री पढ़ाते हैं, जो हमारे ऊपर जिन्होंने जुल्म किया उनको हीरो बना के बताते हैं, मुगलों की हिस्ट्री बताते हैं कि जी मुगल ने ये कर दिया, मुगल ने वो कर दिया। साला जो ऑक्यूपायर है, ऑक्यूपायर को हम ग्लोरीफाई कर रहे हैं, जिन्होंने ऑक्यूपायर्स के खिलाफ जंगें लड़ी हैं उनको हमने इतिहास से मिटा दिया है।
Okay, we're running out of the time. Thank you so much for your views. एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन आपसे मैं पूछना चाहूंगा, ये एक जो कैप्टन अपने मिर्जा अहमद खान थे, जो बाद में कर्नल रिटायर हुए हैं पाकिस्तानी आर्मी से, जो 6 जम्मू एंड कश्मीर इन्फेंट्रीज के थे और बाद में उन्होंने एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका अदा की थी ब्रिगेडियर घनसारा सिंह को इम्प्रिजन करके और गिलगित बाल्टिस्तान को पाकिस्तानी की झोली में डालने के, उनके बारे में आपका क्या विचार है? मैंने ये सुना था एक गोष्ठी में उन्होंने बोला कि हमारे कायदे आजम मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना नहीं है, ये कैप्टन खान साहब हैं, तो आपका इसके बारे में क्या विचार है सर?
मेरे वही विचार हैं जो लोगों के गद्दारों के बारे में होते हैं।
I think you said it all, and we've understood your viewpoint, sir. And his views are very important, that he gives suggestions that we in India should have this kind of information about this region as part of the curriculum, and we should discuss as a nationwide movement. And second thing that he says is that we should have advisors from there, and maybe I can go a step further, like we've done in case of Tibet. We can have a government in exile, which will be from the POJK combined, that is Gilgit Baltistan, as well as the so-called Azad Kashmir of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. Thanks, and we'll be back again with another subject personality in a short time to come. Thank you very much. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat.
Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Worryingly so, sir. Brigadier Vijay Sagar, a few of our soldiers are still missing.
हमारी आर्मी एक प्रोफेशनल आर्मी है।
पर इंडिया के साथ जो लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल है, वो जानबूझकर नहीं समझाना चाहता।
आप सरकार को जिस तरह से घेरना चाहते हैं, घेरिए, मगर इसके खत्म होने के बाद
टेररिज्म, क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म, ये सब नहीं चलने वाले।
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मुद्दों पर आपकी पकड़ भी हो कुछ ऐसी, जो करे आपको और लोगों से अलग। तो ब्रिगेडियर डॉक्टर विजय सागर धीमान को YouTube, Facebook, Twitter पर फॉलो करना ना भूलें।